Ahmadiyyah, how many more years? Copper blood in these waters, Most High see us here. Peace be still, but the truth gonna appear. Emmett young boy whistling in the store. White lies turned to lynch and dragged him from the door. Beaten, shot river, swallowed him whole. Open casket, mama showed the world his soul. Nolan wheels, 18, boat ride on the 4th. Only black in the circle, now they say he drowned for. Horn Island whispers, friends came back without him. Mississippi history, still hunting, still doubting. Same state, same pain, different name. Black boy lost in the Delta rain. When will it change? Lord, when will it change? Ancestors screaming, we never left this stage. 1955, Chicago boy down south for the summer breeze. Money, Mississippi, wrong place for a black team to breathe. Brian stole, maybe a whistle, maybe just a smile. Jim Crow code broken, now they coming in the night. Wild Roy and Malone snatched him from his uncle's floor. Tortured that baby, fanti round, body in the Tallahatchie roar. Mutilated face, mama said let the world see. Acquitted by all white jury, not guilty, set him free. Sparked the movement, Montgomery rose from the flames. But the Delta dirt still holding black boys' names. Emmett was 14, just a child in his prime, lynched for existing in a twisted mind. Emmett Till, Nolan Wells, Delta shadows ringing bells. Black life cheap in these haunted lands. Most High coming with justice in his hands. 2026 July 4th, independence gone wrong. Broke the Horn Island with the crew, singing freedom songs. 18 years young, big heart, only copper in the mix. Friends white as the judge that let killers walking. 55 disappeared that day, body found on the shore 2 nights later. They say drowning, no foul play, but the family know better. Questions swimming deeper than the Gulf water's cold. Why leave your phone? Why the silence from the foe? Mississippi again, history echoing loud. Ben Crump calling for truth, independent, autopsy proud. Was it accident or the past rising from the mud? Black boy with white friends, trust issues in our blood.
Why the same soil claim my sons? Ancestor never left, we still the chosen one.
From Till's open casket to Nolan's unanswered call. In time signs, Leviathan rising, watch the fall. No hate, just black love, we hold each other tight. But stop crashing out on each other and demand what's right.
Peace be still,
Through the storm we prevail,
Father's child.
we shall not fail. Both in Mississippi, Delta's cruel embrace. One lynched open, one body lost without a trace. Emmett's killers brag after the verdict came. Nolan's story fogged in speculation and shame. 14 or 18, young kings taken too soon. Waters claim the bodies, but the spirit touched the moon. Same fear, same doubt, same racist undercurrent flow. But we wiser now, cameras, voices won't let go. Indigenous copper, mountain builder stand tall. We walk together, ancestors answer the call. No more silent nights, no more cover graves. Justice for Emmett, justice for Nolan. Raise the blade.
Emmett Till, Nolan Wells.
Hell no,
Emmett Till, Nolan
but our spirit never failed. We got black love revolution now. Most High know my heart, make it right somehow.
Peace be still,
Peace be still. From Till to West, the story's still real. Let the world see, let the truth be free. Let the world see, let the world see. Let the truth be free.
All right. All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning back in once again to the original Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur show. I'm your host, Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur, and this is your daily vitamin. Sorry, guys. I was having a technical difficulty at the start of the broadcast. Okay. So, with that all being said, let's get ready to get into it. We have some interesting updates on the Nolan Wells case. Okay. So, we're going to get into all of that. Now, first, before we get started, you all know the spiel. Let's see who all is in here, and then let's have a word from my sponsor at 12 Tribes. All right. Hello, Truth Brown, Buckhorst, DC, Hadassah, 504. Nola is in the virtual building. Okay. DJ The Truth TV. Okay. Let's get it popping. POP. Okay. Azokatano. I have to get used to saying that. Okay. Danny Joe is here. Ethelene is in the building. Mr. Elevation. Nima is here. All right. Let's get it started. Blessed the chosen. All right. Dark Tube. I see you, beloved. Jaden. Okay, so everybody hit that like button. Real Eyes Recognize Real Eyes is here, okay? SB is in the house. Leon. Okay, so shout out to all of my loyal roads and everyone tuned into the Queen, and a big shout out to my moderators because y'all know they be putting in work. All right, I see you, Alberto. So let's get it started. Mr. Billy Bathgates is here. Okay, so let's have a brief word from my sponsor at 12 Tribes. Here we go.
Do not buy 12 Tribes on Earth hair growth oil and hair magic elixir unless you want super healthy, gorgeous hair that grows. They have a whole line of amazing hair growth products, including hair growth leave-in conditioner spray, hair growth shampoo, hair growth spray, and hair growth butter. I'm starting to sense a theme here. They include quality natural ingredients. They smell amazing, and you can see the results for yourself. So if you're looking for healthy hair growth for your natural or relaxed hair, try 12 Tribes on Earth today.
All right, so don't forget you can purchase 12 Tribes Hair Oil at Etsy.com. Just look for Lisa Kratz. You can also find her products at Walmart. And don't forget that she sells beard oil, okay? So with that all being said, everybody hit that like button. Double check to make sure that you're still subscribed, especially if you have not been receiving those notifications. Okay, so let's talk about it because Nancy Grace went in hard in the paint last night, okay, on the pathologist that she had on her show for a guest. And she was just going in on everybody, okay? She clearly wanted answers and she's digging for them. All right, now with that being said, we're going to get into that, but also here's the thing. Nolan's mother has filed to start the probate process. Okay, so she filed a petition to open Nolan's estate. And so an after death estate opening basically is when you start initiating the probate process. Okay, this is where they would normally appoint somebody to be the executor of the estate. Okay, to validate the deceased will if they had one, which Nolan likely didn't. Okay, but nonetheless, someone is appointed to be in charge of everything. Okay, specifically like if they had outstanding debts, filing taxes, assets, or things like that, or things that were going to be transferred to the rightful heirs. So his mother has done this. Now, in this case, Mrs. Christine Wansley has done this basically because this is her first step in filing that wrongful death lawsuit. Okay, so it looks like it's going to be a bad day for Judge Ashley Cole and Dr. Benjamin Hudson. Okay, and the rest of the people that were with Nolan. Okay, we won't say they did anything nefarious to him because we don't know. But let's talk about it. Lights up, everyone, please like and share. Now, the petition filed July the 20th and Jackson County Chancery Court. Ooh, isn't that interesting? Because guess who works at the Chancery Court? Oh, that's right, a Judge Ashley Cole. Hope she was the first one to find out. Anyway, it asked the court to appoint Wells's mother, Christine Wells Wansley, as the administrator of her son's estate and to issue letters of administration giving her legal authority to act on the estate's behalf. Now, the handwritten case number indicates the case or the cause was assigned to the court of Judge D. Neil Harris. And according to the filing, Wells died without a will. He was never married, had no children, and left his mother as his sole heir under Mississippi law. Now, the petition goes on to state that the estate consists solely of claims for damages resulting from the circumstances surrounding his death and asks the court to appoint Wansley as administrator in order to investigate and pursue claims of the estate. So what does that mean? Yeah, that means a wrongful death suit's coming. That's what that means. Okay, and I'm not surprised because I knew that was going to be coming soon. Now, the petition goes on to state that the estate consists solely of claims that for damages resulting from the circumstances surrounding his death, and asks the court to appoint Wansley as the administrator. Now, the filing also asks the court to waive the normal requirements of an inventory, appraisal, accounting, and bond, representing that any proceeds ultimately received by the estate after payment of fees and expenses would be deposited into a federally insured financial institution until further order of the court. Now, the filing does not identify any potential defendants, mind you, nor does it allege that any particular individual or entity is legally responsible for Wells's death. No wrongful death lawsuit has yet been filed. Okay, now the estate petition comes as the investigation into Wells's death continues. So this is all very interesting. This is all very interesting. And also Benjamin Crump. Now, here's the thing. They're saying Benjamin Crump has backpedaled. Okay, they said he's backtracked on that independent autopsy. Because, see, here's the thing. They thought that he was going to release that before Ocean Springs did. Because, remember, they claim to be still waiting on the toxicology report down there in Ocean Springs. So I guess they thought that Benjamin Crump was going to release his first. But no, because here's what they now report. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. Nolan Wells' parents, Christine and Elmore Wansley, have hired nationally prominent civil rights attorney Benjamin Crump. Okay, I'm going to skip past all of the rigmarole. So now, during Wells's funeral, Crump led mourners in a chant of justice for Nolan Wells. Now, he acknowledged that nobody knows yet how the young man died. Crump initially said that he would have results of an independent autopsy on June the 10th. He said during the news conference that those results are still unavailable. For the first time, Crump publicly mentioned there are limitations to the independent autopsy. Now, the state's autopsy was conducted the morning of July the 7th. Wells's body was turned over to the funeral home the same day. Now, Crump had the body flown to Washington for the independent autopsy, but said there were flight delays. Forensic pathologist Roger A. Mitchell Jr. conducted the autopsy. A National Medical Association biography on Mitchell says he's an expert on deaths while in law enforcement custody, and that he has been an expert witness in many high-profile cases. And says, obviously, you want stuff from the first state autopsy because they had the body closer to time. This is what Crump says. Okay, when asked about the news conference about the independent autopsy status, he says, we got the body almost 6 days later. So there are limitations as to what he could do. So, you do the best you can, but there are unanswered questions. So he's getting his report together. I believe it will be coming very soon. Now, late Tuesday morning, a public relations firm working with Crump sent out a news release that said the attorney will join the Wells family to release the preliminary independent autopsy at a news conference at 8 a.m. Wednesday at the 117th NAACP National Convention in Chicago. Well, so I guess it's coming soon. And also, by the way, Terrell Owens has donated $25,000 more to the fund for the reward for anyone with information leading to the arrest and conviction of anyone involved in the death of Nolan Wells. Okay, so you all hear that? So now we're up to $125,000. And I expect that someone's likely going to start talking. Okay, now that's just my opinion. But what do you all think? Likes up, everyone, please like and share. Now, I'm going to go to this petition. It's like 3 pages long. And we're just going to go over this briefly. Everybody hit that like button. Thank you in advance. Here we go. Okay, so as you can see, here is the document right here. In the Chancery Court of Jackson County, Mississippi, in the matter of the estate of Nolan X. Wells, deceased, Christine Wells Wansley, petition to open estate, appoint administrator, grant letters of administration, and for other relief. So It says the petitioner, Christine Wells Wansley, hereby files this petition to open estate, appoint administrator, grant letters of administration, and for other relief regarding Nolan X. Wells deceased. Now, for cause, the petitioner shows the court the following. 1. The petitioner, Christine Wells Wansley, is an adult resident citizen of Jackson County, Mississippi. The petitioner is the natural mother of decedent, Nolan X. Wells. Accordingly, under Mississippi Code, statute 91-7-63, she is the proper person to serve as administrator of the decedent's estate. Now, the decedent died tragically in Jackson County, Mississippi on or about July the 4th of 2026, having at the time of his death a fixed residence of, and I'm going to skip all that, that's the address. Now, the decedent has no last will and testament, so far as petitioner knows or believes after a diligent search and inquiry. The decedent had no children during his lifetime. He was never married. The decedent left as his sole heir, heir-in-law, his natural mother, Christine Wells Wansley. So far as the petitioner knows, the decedent, at the time of his death, left an estate consisting solely of claims of damages or for damages resulting from the circumstances surrounding his death. Accordingly, in order to investigate and pursue claims of the estate, the petitioner respectfully requests that this court appoint the petitioner as administrator of the decedent's estate. The petitioner is over the age of 21 years old and is of sound mind, has not been convicted of a felony. She is already able and willing to serve as administrator of the decedent's estate. Now, the petitioner is familiar with all the decedent's property, both real and personal, and other assets, so no good purpose would be served by requiring bond, inventory, appraisement, or accounting. Moreover, the petitioner represents that any estate proceeds to be received by the petitioner, less all fees and expenses, will be placed on deposit with a federally insured financial institution, which such proceeds to remain on deposit until further order of this court. Wherefore, premises considered, petitioner Christine Wells Wansley prays that this court will appoint her as administrator of the estate of Nolan X. Wells deceased, with letters of administration being issued to her by the clerk of the court upon her taking the oath prescribed by law. The petitioner further prays that inventory, appraisal, accounting, and bond be waived by the court unless the need therefore should later arise and the order by the court. And this is signed by Christine Wells Wansley, July the 20th of 2026, which was yesterday, of course. State of Mississippi, County of Jackson, personally appeared before me, and there it is signed, okay, by the notary. So I can just hear the little minions getting so upset and mad and butthurt right now. The first thing they're going to say is, oh, she couldn't wait. She couldn't wait. She did it on the same day as the funeral. They can sit down somewhere. Okay, they can sit down somewhere. Of course, they're going to make that argument. And the reason they're going to make that argument is because this is bad for their side. Okay, this is bad for their side. At the end of the day, as far as I'm concerned, there's only two sides, God's side and the devil's side. Which one are they on? Well, we already know. And so, of course, they're not going to like any of this. They got upset because the money was donated for the family to be able to offer a reward, okay, to lead to the arrest and conviction of anyone that was culpable. And they definitely don't like that because they feel like that money looming out there is going to entice someone to come forward and start talking so they can get a payday. And I hope that that's exactly what it does. Okay, I hope that's exactly what happens. But now I know they're equally as upset. Okay, because now this lets them know, puts them on notice that someone is going to pay monetary compensation, even if you think you're going to finagle your way out of criminal charges. Okay, because here's the thing that we should all be thinking about. I've been thinking about this consistently. Now, remember, if in fact it comes back that Nolan did die by drowning, well, that still doesn't mean there wasn't any foul play. Okay? It still doesn't mean that there wasn't any foul play. Please pay attention. With that all being said, so that doesn't clear the little varmints as far as I'm concerned. They still did a whole bunch of things that are very suspect. Okay? Hold on, beloveds. I'm pulling up something real quick. All right. Also, I want to go to what Brian Thrasher of Cajun Navy has recently said. And here's the thing to also keep in mind. I think I told you all this before, but just in case I didn't, let me just tell you the difference and why I say that even if he died by drowning, that's not going to convince me that the devils didn't do anything. And here's why, because you see, drowning is a cause of death. It's not a manner of death. Okay, there's a difference. All right, so the cause of death, the specific medical or biological reason that the person died. Okay, it could be drowning, right? Drowning, asphyxiation, cardiac arrest, just to name a few. But here's the thing, the classification of how the cause of death came about, okay, is important. So on a death certificate, the matter will typically be listed as accidental, homicide, suicide, or undetermined. So that means that if someone is deemed to have their cause of death listed as drowning, that still does not mean that it wasn't a whole homicide. Okay, I just want you all to be very aware of that. Is anyone confused? Is anyone confused? DJ Big Six says he was properly held down. Okay, here's the thing. Remember what I told you all. Remember what I told you all about that dream. Now, so like I said, someone could absolutely have the cause of death as drowning. That is not the same thing as the manner of death. Because did they drown? Did they die of drowning because they were in the water, they fell in and they were swimming and they got tired and they couldn't finish the swim and they just started to sink? It was accidental? Or did they go out there purposely and intentionally drown themselves because they were depressed or suffering from trauma or whatever? And then that would be self-deletion. Or did someone take them out to the water and hold them down like DJ Big Six just said? Because that would absolutely be murder or homicide. Okay? Or did someone take some illegal substances, walk out into the water, start having cardiac arrest, and then also at the same time drown? And now they can't really determine which one they actually died from. Those are just some examples, okay? But now with that all being said, moving right along, the bottom line is they're about to get sued for wrongful death. And here's the thing. People could say, well, they can't prove that they had anything to do with it, or they can't prove this or that. But the bottom line is, in a civil case, you don't have to have it beyond a reasonable doubt. It only has to go by a preponderance of the evidence. So they can make it make sense, okay, and make it seem more likely than not that they could have possibly been in the wrong or had something that they did, whether purposely, intentionally, or negligently, they can still get sued, okay? So please pay attention. And the fact that there was no open casket and the body was just so in such poor condition that they had to use dental records. This is all crazy, okay? Absolutely crazy. Now, with that all being said, likes up, everyone, please like and share. Thank you in advance. Let's get ready to get into the rest of these receipts. Let's get ready to get into it because first off, I think I told you all that Terrell Owens donated $25 more thousand. Okay, so let's go to a Nancy. No. First, let's go to the Cajun Navy guy. He was on TMZ. And I want to go to what he said. Really quickly. But I will say this. You all remember those two black women that came out? That's right. Rep Magazine OG said they sued OJ. Exactly. They sure did. Here's the thing. And OJ was acquitted and still got sued. Now, here's the thing, though. Remember those two black women who came out and said that Nolan's body was disrespected when it was transported, right? And transit, that his body was carried face down. Remember that? Was packed face down, right? Nancy Grace pretty much confirmed that because she said it at least twice, I do believe, in her broadcast, that his body was face down. Okay? So if anybody had questions, and we know that Nancy Grace knows what she's talking about more likely than not because she has all these connections. She knows Ben Crump. They're good friends. And she knows other people in law enforcement, all these other things. So quite frankly, and in the courts. Okay, because she's been doing this for decades. Now, I don't really care for Nancy Grace, but I'm just saying in this case, okay, I'm listening to what she's saying. But that all being said, so she has confirmed that basically. Now, I'm going to go to this report from TMZ, this exclusive from yesterday, where they say Cajun Navy rescuer reveals the condition Nolan Wells was found in. Now, don't be expecting any bombshells, because really, he said some of what I already told you about the condition of the body during aquatic decomposition. But he said that, you know, because Nolan was out there for a few days, that, I mean, basically that's just regular decomposition. Or maybe that wasn't him that said it. Could have been the guy on Nancy Grace's channel. I don't know. But either way, let's just listen. Okay, let's just listen. I've been listening to a whole lot and doing a bunch of research. So at this point, I can't remember exactly who said what. Okay, let's go to this video. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. Thank you in advance. And I'm going to use an overlay, of course.
No. I'm joined today by Brian Trasher. He is the VP of the United Cajun Navy and participated in the search for Nolan Wells. He's here to give us his version of events today. Brian, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me on today.
Before this interview started, you started to get into the sequence of events surrounding, you know, from when Nolan Wells was first reported missing to you getting in your plane. Can you walk us through what your story is?
Yeah, sure. So it was kind of late in the evening on 4 July when we first got a call. I think the first dispatch came in through one of our channels, through either a family member or family friend of Nolan's, who ultimately put our incident commander in touch with his mother, who at that point was in full-on, you know, search mode. She at that point was very concerned that he was actually missing, and was doing everything. They were doing everything they could to kind of retrace the steps, get his phone, get his keys, all that. So really, it was the next morning when we were told that there was going to be another boat going out, possibly containing some of Nolan's family. I'm not sure what the details were of that. In the morning on 5 July, that would have been Sunday. And by late morning, we had gotten basically another call saying, hey, if you guys have any boats in the area and can go out there and canvass the island, would appreciate it. So I had two of my volunteers from the Mississippi chapter from Ocean Springs, actually, that put in like say midday on 5 July. They went out to Horn Island. They went on the island first, took a drone, looked around all over from an aerial view, and then they ran a grid between Horn Island and Ship Island with the boat. Both of these volunteers, one's a rescue specialist, one's actually a member of law enforcement, so they have a lot of experience. And they stayed at it for a few hours, and then the weather started to deteriorate, so they came back in. That's when we knew we were done for the day on 5 July. We made the decision that on 6 July, that if the weather permitted, we were going to put an aircraft up, because we were getting further and further away from the last time Nolan was seen alive. So that's when we put that aircraft up. We were wheels up out of Gulfport International at about 06:30 on 6 July.
Right. And so, you know, when you first get the call, how did the United Cajun Navy get looped in? Was it through Christine Monsley's social post, or was it after? Was it, you know, through your own accord?
Yeah, so the way that happened is, my understanding is that when people started posting on social media about Nolan being missing, that a lot of people started tagging the United Cajun Navy, you know, basically just kind of making us aware that this was going on, and then ultimately kind of sequencing to asking us for help. Like I said, there was an official message. I don't know if it came through our voicemail or through one of our email or one of our social media messaging platforms, but somebody made contact with, and our incident commander, I think, was either monitoring messages, or one of our people monitoring told him about the message that came through. Whoever that person was, it wasn't Nolan's mother, but whoever it was knew her and knew how to get in touch with her, and ultimately put our incident commander in touch with Christine that night on 4 July.
I have a question for you. You know, given the call to the Coast Guard at 11 p.m. and then the request for help the following day from JCSO at around noon, did you feel like you were starting the search a little bit later than you should be?
There wasn't really, there wasn't anything that we could have done on the night of of July 4th, to be honest. But also too, at that point, I still didn't know, let me just, I'll put it this way. On July 4th, when I went to sleep, I didn't know if they had finally gotten in contact with Nolan, if he had come home, if they had found out any new information. It wasn't until the morning of July 5th when I learned that he was still missing overnight. And that's when I became very concerned that, okay, he didn't come home all night. That's a bad sign. And so it was that point when they started calling for all hands and said, okay, we'll put a boat in the water. And then that led to the activities of our search crews on 5 July.
Can you talk to me about the water conditions? What did the water conditions look like that night from where you were?
You're talking about the day he went missing or the day we started searching?
The day you started searching.
They were pretty similar to, for most part of the day, they were pretty similar to the conditions on the 4th of July. They were fairly calm. There was strong currents, but not really big waves, not a lot of wind. It was very hot. Water temperatures were upper 70s, low 80s. Toward the late afternoon, a little front moved in from the west, and presumably it chopped up the Mississippi Sound at that point. But again, our guys aborted when they saw that weather coming. So that was probably like by 3 or 4 o'clock the afternoon of 5 July is when they had to abort that search. And then that night when I huddled with my team, that was when we made the decision that, putting out another boat on Monday, presumably with the weather clearing up, was really going to be futile because, at this point we're getting too far away from the last time he was seen alive. So we needed to cover more ground quickly, and that's why we had to use an aircraft. You
were involved when the body was eventually located and found. What can you tell me about the state and position that the body was in that hasn't been reported?
Yeah. So again, just to put it into perspective, it was I'm told it was about 08:45 on 6 July when a park ranger on Horn Island discovered the body, called it in to law enforcement. We had myself and the gentleman who donated his plane that day out of Gulfport. We had been flying for about 2 hours at that point. We were making a track going from Horn Island over to Ship Island down to Chandelier Island, which is south of both of those islands, about another 30 miles. So we were coming back up north towards the northwest tip of Horn Island when we noticed there were boats in the center of the island where there's a lagoon. And then we saw some boats approaching the northwest tip. And then when we got closer, we noticed there were 2 boats already parked in tandem on the beach. That was strange. It was a Monday morning. It was obvious they weren't fishing. So we descended and to about maybe 450 feet, 500 feet. And we could tell it was law enforcement boats, law enforcement personnel. So we descended maybe another 100 feet or so, circled around. And that's when I saw a law enforcement presence gathering on that northwest point. And then I noticed that there was what appeared to be a body right at the shoreline, laying face down on the sand.
The implication is that this body had washed up, unfortunately, on the shore.
That's what it looked like to me. Yeah.
Did you see any visible injuries or anything that you can speak to at that distance?
No. From that height, right? So it's best I can do. The description matched Nolan Wells. It matched the area. It was the area where we were looking. So I had good reason to believe, even before I heard from the sheriff's office, that it was him. The swim trunks appeared to be similar color to what was reported. The one thing I'll say about the condition of the body, and again, I want to stress very, as much as I can, that I'm at 450 feet in the air. So I did not have a good ground's eye view look. But normally when a body's been floating, you'll see some bloating and whatnot. He wasn't in the water that long. The water temperature was high. He has a low body mass index. So both of those factors together, normally we'll look for a body to pop up on about day 4, but we knew it was possible he could pop up as soon as day 2. And this was day 2. Again, the body, I'm trying to think of the most respectful way to say it. The body did not seem at that height to be disproportionate to the way it should look. Now, I could not get a good look at his face. I could not get a good look of the front side of his body, which was on the beach. I was really looking at his back, back of his legs, back of his arms, that kind of thing. And so that was my vantage point. And I just want to stress to everybody that that's not an ideal vantage point. It's just what I could see. And plus I'm flying at like 90 knots. So, I mean, I'm going pretty fast. So I'm really getting when I say a glimpse, it's a glimpse.
Was there anything about the location, how close to shore, how far from the shore when he was last seen, that struck you as unusual?
I don't want to say unusual, but I would say that the wind and drift patterns that I was studying what had me believing that he was going to be taken through that ship channel between Horn Island and Ship Island and carried south. It's important to also point out that just like maybe 6 or 7 weeks prior to this, there was a shrimp boat worker who had gone off MOB, man overboard, off of a shrimp boat in Pascagoula, which is on the coast, like close to Horn Island. And it took about a week before we found him, but he had washed up all the way down at the Chandelier Island. So that could have also influenced my pattern of thought, just because in a similar, I mean, he didn't go overboard on the island, but it was in a similar area, and he got carried through that channel. Based on where Nolan washed up, my assumption, and again, I'm a search and rescue person. I'm not an investigator, but it seems like what happened was he was carried north, which indicates to me that he might have got caught in a rip current, and it carried him north. And then as the tide slacked and the current changed back to a southward heading, it carried him right back to the beach. The only thing that really stood out to me that I was not expecting is that he washed up very, very close to the last spot where he was seen alive. I wasn't expecting that.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything you saw or heard during the search that you feel hasn't gotten enough public attention?
I think that the biggest thing that stands out for me, and I think this sort of is why I understand the way that his parents have gone about this search and the whole case, is that there's just seems to be no information past about 4:30 that afternoon on July 4th until he was found. Now, I'm told that police have interviewed up to 60 witnesses. There's a lot of people who have turned in images and videos to us, and there's people I know that have turned images and videos over to law enforcement. So there's a lot about this. There's a lot of evidence in this case I have not personally seen, and a lot of accounts I have not heard. But based on everything that people did offer to us, it's just it's just hard to understand why, his friends leave, sometime around 4:30. That seems to be about the last time somebody said they visually saw him on the island with a different friend group, and then just nobody ever saw him again after that. And so that's why I like I said, I fully understand. The parents are like, I mean, it's like a vanishing, and that doesn't make any sense. So like, of course, they want to accept every bit of help they can get and just have it looked into as thoroughly as possible, because they buried their son today and they need to know why.
Mr. Trasher, I sincerely appreciate.
Okay, I appreciate his efforts in the rescue, the search, and all of that, them volunteering, and him doing these interviews, giving us information. But this is a good question, Bianca. I've been asking myself the same question for days now. Why have they not interviewed the person, the ranger, who specifically found Nolan's body? Where is this person? And why haven't they spoken to them at all? Does this person not choose to speak? What is going on here? Much of this case is shrouded in secrecy. They are not being transparent. And Truth Brown says they're lying. Absolutely, they're lying. And Nancy Grace called them out on a whole bunch of BS that I've been calling them out on, just like you all said in the chat. Okay? Let's get ready to get into it, because this is real crazy. But hold on. There is breaking news. You heard it here first. Everybody put some fire emojis in the chat. Fire emojis in the chat. Okay, Truth Brown says, why they're not talking if he drowned? That's a good question. That is a good question, because here's the thing, like I told you all, even if they come back and say he did drown, I still find it suspicious because of all the shady things that happened, and also because of that dream I had that was hella suspicious. Now, mind you, as I told you all, when I have my prophetic dreams, I tend to have them between the hours of 2 a.m. to 7 a.m. because that's when you're in a state of REM, okay? Now, when I had that dream a couple of weeks ago, I was taking a nap during the day, so I can't say if it's going to come true, but, you know, it absolutely could be. It's very plausible. Now, with that all being said, let's continue, because here's the thing. Here is the breaking news, beloveds. Came out about 30 minutes ago. Nolan Wells' body was found face down, just like those Black women said, and fully clothed on the island where he celebrated the 4th of July with his friends. Now, why would he be fully clothed? Because when we saw him in every picture and video, he was only wearing those blue shorts, those blue swim trunks, not even shoes. And if you remember, during the beginning of the investigation, someone was saying that if he had gone walking to a certain area of Horn Island, that he would never have made it up there because he didn't have on shoes, and there's cactus and rocks and things like that. So I find this interesting. Let's get into it. Amid the mystery around Nolan Wells' death after he disappeared from a 4th of July party in Mississippi, one of the men who helped find the teen's body is sharing details of what they saw. Now, Todd Terrell, president of the United Cajun Navy, that's not the person we were just listening to. That was Brian Thrasher. Okay, but anyway, or Trasher, goes on to say that Todd Terrell, who's the president of the nonprofit that assisted in the search for the 18-year-old, he told Nancy Grace that Wells was face down and fully clothed. Okay, on Horn Island. His death remains unclear pending an official autopsy. He had been celebrating the holiday with friends but never made it home. His body was in the same vicinity of where he possibly drowned. It was not uncommon for the body to have washed up right there, said Terrell. Let me tell y'all something. Now, you all tell me what you think about this. Okay, Dion Rice said autopsy tomorrow at 8 a.m. Central. Okay, well, I'll sure be waiting. Here's the thing. You all tell me what you think about this. What if, when they were calling for that distress, when they said the boat was in distress or whatever, and that it was taken on water, what if that was after they did something to Nolan? What if that was after they did something to him? Not that they left him on the island, but that he wasn't on the boat because he was knocked off the boat, thrown off the boat, fell off the boat, tossed off the boat, or something nefarious. Because I still find it so interesting that they said that his body or the boat made the call from the vicinity of where his body was found just 2 days later. What if that's what happened? And what if what I dreamt was absolutely correct? What if he was walking to the boat, trying to get to it, just like I told you all I had in that dream, and then they just played chicken with him, pulling off a little bit further, and then he walks a little further, and then they pull off a little bit further, and they just keep doing that until he gets to the point where he can't swim any longer. Okay, I have questions, because why were all of his clothes on? Hold on. I know what we'll do. We'll just go to Nancy Grace's video. Okay, I'm going to have to use an overlay because I don't have permission to use this video. And everybody's coming out to talk about this now. As I can see, Judge Mathis has broken his silence and come out and said something about it. Okay, Terrell Owens donated money. Also, I don't know if you all noticed it, but yesterday Terrell Owens was at the funeral. Did you all see him? Marie James said, I believe it sounds likely. Truth Brown said, Queen, I'm wondering who was that? Who was on that bayou that they went to, because the tow company has said they did not tow the boat. Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. Thank you for bringing that up, beloved, because I actually called the tow company myself today because I saw someone posted a receipt saying something about the tow company didn't. Let me see if I screenshot it. Saying something about the tow company did say it's called C Tow, SEA Tow, saying that they said they didn't tow that boat, right? Hold on, did I think I looked it up. Hold on. But I did call them today, and they had me on hold too long. I called them, and they were telling me they were the international number, and then the lady was going to transfer me. I recorded it too. She said she was going to transfer me or whatever, and then they had me on hold, and then she comes back and says they can call me back, and she asked me for my phone number, my email, which I gave to her. Okay, and they have not called me back as of yet, because I was just trying to clarify, because I'm not trying to give out fake news. But thank you for that, beloved. Okay, so now let's go to Nancy Grace's video, because clearly they likely talk about that on her show. I didn't watch the whole show last night. I did watch some clips of it, but we'll find out for certain. Like stuff, everyone, please like and share. Thank you in advance. Let me just put an overlay on this. There we go.
Bombshell tonight. The dead teen's messages deleted after his body washes ashore. Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. I want to thank you for being with us.
Hold on, I just have to say this also, because Truth Brown, I saw your comment from a few minutes ago when you said as soon as you heard Nancy Grace say, you knew that it was up for all of them. Okay, let's get into it, beloved.
18-year-old football star Nolan Wells heads to Horn Island with his friends to celebrate the 4th of July. But hours later, after he doesn't return to shore, his friends report him missing, launching a desperate search across the water.
They met that day, and it was kind of one of those things. It did come off that day that he really did like her, but that was the only time they've ever hung out, was at Horn Island on July 4th.
We're sinking. Can you all please come?
And is everybody on board in good health otherwise?
Yeah, everybody's on board.
From our friends at GMA, no, everyone was not on board. Nolan was not on board. And who's the mysterious girl he met for the very first time the day he goes missing? His body spotted by the United Cajun Navy, washed ashore. We have obtained that photo. We are choosing tonight not to show it. That last sound from our friends at NBC joining me in all-star panel, but first straight out to Todd Terrell, representing the United Cajun Navy, participating in the water search for Nolan Wells. Todd, thank you for being with us. What did you observe?
You know, Horn Island, that area right there is an area that we have seaplanes that we operate back and forth to the island, taking people back and forth fishing, or oil field workers, you know, back off to rigs and stuff. That morning, the body was observed on the northwest portion of Horn Island, which is not unusual for someone to drown and be washed up in that area. There was a park ranger that was on the island that actually had spotted the body, and we were calling in down to law enforcement officials on the ground what we saw from the air.
Todd Terrell joining us from the United Cajun Navy, called in to participate in the water search for this young star athlete, Nolan Wells. Tonight, mystery swirling around his death. How is it that a group of his friends go out on a boat? They go to a remote Horn Island. There is nobody there. It's uninhabited. There are no phones. There are no bathrooms. It's just a hangout place. How does he end up dead on the shore and everybody else makes it back? I want you to hear one more time what the group is saying about that day.
They met that day, and it was kind of one of those things. It did come off that day that he really did like her, but that was the only time they've ever hung out, was at Horn Island on July 4th.
From our friends at GMA, who is she? Where is she? What, if anything, did she have to do, if there is a she, with Nolan's death? That's from our friends at GMA. Back to you, Todd Terrell. And I'm about to go to Caitlin Becker, senior national correspondent, New York Post, on the story from the get-go. Todd, you stated to me that it's, quote, not unusual for bodies to wash ashore in that spot. What do you mean by that? Because if it was that common, wouldn't this be designated a dangerous area and there would be warning signs? What do you mean it's not unusual? I find that hard to believe.
Well, many areas along the coast of the whole Gulf Coast area is a dangerous area. You know, I don't believe they could put up signs anywhere. I think it should be known that these are bad areas. The rip current is very bad in that northwestern portion. We call it the washing machine, actually. It's an area where the current just rolls round and round in there, like kind of like a washing machine. And one of the interesting things was where Nolan was found was probably pretty close to where the incident occurred. So the body didn't go that far.
Okay, what incident? Was there an incident? Are you suggesting Todd Terrell, joining us tonight from the United Cajun Navy, our friends, by the way, at the United Cajun Navy? They are called in on many missing persons case. Todd, you stated the incident. What incident? You mean he didn't drown?
We're saying that whatever happened, we're calling an incident. Our job as United Cajun Navy is to bring people home back to their families, first of all, alive, second of all, recover the body if possible. We knew in this case, the time frame that was involved, that we were looking for a recovery at this point. But when I said the incident, something happened to make Nolan not be with us anymore. It appears as though it was a drowning. You know, there was a lot of rumors about him being brought back to the land 10 miles away and you know, brought back out there and dumped off. I don't believe any of that is true. Whatever happened in that water, we're calling the incident. You know, the water goes from 2 to 3 foot to like 20 feet real quick. You know, there was some underage kids out there drinking. It's an island, you know, there's no IDs being checked or anything like that. So when we said an incident, there's anything that could have happened. And not every person that drowns do you hear screaming and hooping and hollering. But at this point, our job was to bring Nolan home, and we did that.
What was observed? Guys, you're seeing right now from our friends at the United Cajun Navy, the video taken from their aerial craft. On the beach, you see a grouping of individuals. Now, from another source, we have obtained photos of Nolan's body that we are not showing. It's just not right. But I can tell you, when you see that grouping of people on the beach, they look like little ant figures from this high up above, but that is where Nolan's body is. They're standing around it. As I recall, Todd Terrell, Nolan was face down, still fully clothed on the beach. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. He was face down, which would have meant that he drowned. Now, when we say he was found fully clothed on the beach, it was in the same vicinity of where he possibly drowned, you know, right there. So it was not uncommon for the body to have washed up right there. That being said, that area full of rip currents really strong right there, goes from 2 to 3 foot to 20 feet, pretty much within a couple steps. So that being said, whatever happened really close to where the body was found.
You know, Todd Terrell, I don't mean to be giving you a hard time. This is not about you. The United Cajun Navy are the protagonist in this scenario. You're the good guys. I've just got so many questions about how this happened. Was there anyone else on Horn Island when Nolan's body was found?
Maintenance fee, overdraft fee, minimum balance fee, maximum balance fee. Banking fees are just a...
Now, there was the park ranger was out there, and there was some law enforcement officials that actually had their boats anchored out there. You know, they were kind of like waiting around for a call of what to do. What people don't realize is when you're looking for a body on the water, especially in the Gulf where you have waves going and you have white caps, it's a little bit harder to see. When you're in a boat, you can only kind of see the vicinity around you. So we put these seaplanes up in the air, we can get a much more visual of the much more bigger area. And these seaplanes can go low and slow.
Let me just interject right here and say something. Ladybug said, stop playing in our faces. Let me say this. What I find interesting is that the Cajun Navy are the same ones who said that the body didn't appear to be waterlogged when he was flying overhead and he saw the body, Nolan's body lying there, right? But so here's the thing. Now he's saying that he's confirming that the body was face down. Now, that's not really confirming what those two women said, because what they said is that the body was face down during transit. Okay, when they were transporting the body, it was still face down. So that's different than the body being face down in the water. So let me just clarify that first of all. But here's the thing. Now, when someone is drowned and the body is found face down, okay, when it floats to the surface, well, it's very unusual, even more so unusual, for the body to not be waterlogged. It's almost always waterlogged, okay? Because the lungs become filled with water. And so whether it floats or sinks depends on the stages of decomposition, mind you, but it's almost always waterlogged when the body is found floating face down. So the fact that the body was found floating face down and it was not waterlogged is very suspicious to me. Okay, very suspicious to me, but let's continue.
So what we do is we stay in contact with the officials on the ground and tell them what we see. And if they see something too, they can relay it up to us and we can go investigate it. So in this case, there were several law enforcement boats that were just kind of hanging out in the area on the island. And there was numerous other boats in the area, you know, circling and looking. But the body was found by a park ranger as it washed up on the beach.
You know, I'm very curious, Todd. Guys, joining us, Todd Terrell with United Cajun Navy. When I said was in island when Nolan's body was found, your answer was completely 100% accurate, but let me rephrase and refine my question. You're saying the park ranger found him. That leads me to believe there were no friends. There was no newly met girlfriend. So am I left to believe that he goes out swimming all on his own and the friend girl leaves, the mates from school leave, everybody just leaves him out in the water and he dies and then just conveniently washes ashore? Somebody just left him out in the water? Does that make sense to you, Todd Terrell?
Well, you know, being a person that goes to this island and several other areas that you can only get to by boat. We have some restaurants and bars in Louisiana that you can only get to by boat, which means you have to hitch a ride with somebody on a boat or that has a boat to get there, which a lot of things could go wrong in that scenario.
Let me say something. Broach says Nancy had just chopped up his entire statement. Absolutely, and that's what she does. Okay, that's what she does. Please pay attention. Now, hold on. Let me read a few of these comments. Like Step Everyone, please like and share. Thank you in advance. Okay, now someone said that his body was found. Jane said his body was found on the beach, not in the water. No, his body was absolutely found in the water. Trust me, I've been paying very close attention. I've been doing my research. His body was recovered face down in the water, just off the shoreline on the northwestern tip of Horn Island, beloved. Now, if you all remember, I was very specific about that the other day when I told you all, because I even did a check to see how far the northwestern tip and the western tip are in proximity to each other, because the body was found, his body was found in the waters off the shoreline of the northwestern tip, but the phone call that they claimed they made to the tow company when they were in distress was at the western tip. Now, Horn Island is only 10 to 13 miles long, right? And so when I looked it up to see how far it was together, because they said it's in the same proximity or vicinity, it was only like 1 to 3 miles. But it absolutely was found in the water, not washed up on the beach, just for clarification.
But as far as what we believe, I believe that Nolan went out there with a group of friends. They were friendly, obviously so, because he was even out there. I mean, you got to understand, to go to an island, you have to have a boat, which means you have to have friends,
Yeah, C-Stan said he's covering up. Okay, thank you for your insight, beloved, and your contribution to the channel. I appreciate you. Here's the thing. It seems like he's trying to paint a narrative. Okay, like he's trying to convince us that the body was not placed there and that, in fact, he was drowned. Okay, that could be true. But what makes him so certain of that? And then here's the thing that gets me. When people feel like because they know something or they've been somewhere a bunch of times or whatever, they act as though that makes them an expert. He says, well, I've been to Horn Island plenty of times, implying that Nancy Grace hasn't, and therefore he's more inclined to know what he's talking about than she is. Okay, but see how she doesn't back down? That's what you do. Because one thing that I know she knows about her own people is the same thing that I told you about her own people. Remember how I told you that they come on here when they're trolling people or they're coming these TikTok lives, and then they'll start spewing things that they don't know to be factual, and sometimes they're outright lies that they've in fact created themselves. And they'll speak them to you as though they're factual and act as though they have all the receipts in the world, but when you ask for receipts, they have none. Okay. And so with that all being said, that's what he sounds like he's doing. I'm not saying he's lying, but what I am saying is that it seems to me that he's painted a narrative because he doesn't know these things for a fact, even though what he says is very plausible, but other things also could have come into play. Okay, so let's continue. Likes up, everyone, please like and share.
You have to have people that kind of like you to even bring you out there. So when Nolan got out there, the group of guys he was with, they decided to come in a little bit earlier. They were having some engine trouble in their boat, which is not uncommon. Happens a lot. Nolan, for whatever reason, decided to stay on the island, which is not uncommon. He could have, had this girl he was talking to. He could have just.
Now, I also want you to pay attention to how he keeps saying the phrase, it's not uncommon, acting as though these sorts of things happen all the time across the board. But also, even more importantly, I want you to notice how he's saying the things that were simply quoted, simply said by Nolan's fake friends. Now, he's repeating what they said as if it is facts. That's the same thing that Rolling Stone did when they interviewed Trayston. They repeated what was said as though it were factual. And it is not factual as far as we know. We don't know if it's factual or not. It isn't like these people can't lie. But I find that very interesting because as long as what's being said goes along and fits with their narrative, they'll take it as truth. Meanwhile, when someone comes along with a whole nother theory that sounds equally, if not more plausible, if it doesn't go along with their narrative and theory, then they'll quickly try to debunk it or discount it. And all of a sudden, that's just hearsay. Okay, please pay attention.
For whatever reason, decided to stay. Not uncommon. That doesn't give us any reason to think foul play or anything was involved there. The issue is when he stayed on the island, he had to hitch a ride back in with somebody. And there's where the issue becomes. Who did he hitch a ride back in exactly?
Now, who said that he hitched a ride, and how does he know for a fact that he stayed there with no ride? And also, I find it very nonsensical that someone, knowing that this island is so secluded, that it doesn't have running water and all of that, and that there's no use of cell phone service. So why would you be out there without your phone and you just be out there hoping on a wing and a prayer that you run into someone that you don't know yet, but you hopefully will meet, that will give you a ride back to shore? Okay, back to where you need to go. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me. None whatsoever.
How were these people connected to him? How did they know him? And it's not uncommon for you not to know somebody at all and just say, hey, I need to ride back in. And they say, yeah, come on, get in the boat with us. So if I say, hey, Nancy, come on, get in the boat with us, that means at that point we're responsible for you.
But Todd, here's my issue. Again, I agree with what you said, but the critical moment is somebody had to leave him there alone for the rest of the scenario that you're describing to unfold. He had to be alone. And Todd, and I'm going to bring in the rest of the panel. I want you to hear this.
So you want to start a podcast, but you're not sure how. Riverside's got you covered. First, go to riverside.com and open an account. And when you're ready,
That is from Anna Moore on Snapchat, and you have to listen very intently to hear what she claims is being said. Todd Terrell, United Cajun Navy, please don't move. Joining me now, Caitlin Becker, the senior national correspondent at New York Post. She is the star of New York Post Cast. New York Post Cast. That's her podcast. Caitlin, thank you for being with us. Now, according to what this Anna Moore on Snapchat has revealed, you can hear, and this is also according to the attorneys, give me my effing phone. This is Nolan reportedly talking. What the F are you doing? The friend, they claim, Trayston Shepard. I can't tell that from what I'm hearing. The friend says, get off me. Get the F off this boat. F you, bro. Now, the voice we believe is Nolan's is, give my effing phone. What the F are you doing? And then another voice, get off me, get the F off this boat, F you. Okay, what do we know? And Caitlin Becker, joining us from New York Post, who is this mysterious friend girl? Because I want to talk to her.
I want to talk to her too, Nancy. The video is tough. The Snapchat is really tough because you do clearly hear an angry altercation. There is the assumption that we're working off of that it is Nolan. However, a few other friends have confirmed it's not Nolan. There's actually someone who said it was me, not him. So you have someone coming forward saying that is not him on the video. So then did no altercation actually take place, or is someone jumping in saying that's me to misdirect or to redirect us from looking at it? That's the one question. The other question that you asked is, who's the girl? Her name is apparently, allegedly, Katie. That's kind of all we know, just Katie. Someone purporting to be related to Katie went on social media, and this is not something that we've been able to confirm, nor have investigators confirmed it. But according to this person, Katie said, we met, we talked, he seemed like he was going back on the boat with his friends, and that was that. So Katie.
Okay, hold on right there. Caitlin Becker. Caitlin. Right there. The girl, if she exists, says they talked, they chatted it up, probably flirting with each other, if accounts are true. Then he leaves to go back to the boat with his friends. But according to the friends, he stayed with her. Right there, that is a conflict. That doesn't fit. Now, Caitlin Becker and the rest of the panel, I want you to hear this.
Is that Nolan in the video?
I can't tell. It's too far away. But in that video, I feel like the voices are too clear. Like from the side, it's too clear for it to be that far away, for it to be Nolan arguing. And then also that altercation, it sounds just like my other friend that got into the altercation on the boat. And they were trying to, like, as he was in that altercation, I was calming him down. They were trying to get him out off the island. They were trying to get him back to land because he was just losing it.
Okay, so you've got, that's from our friend Harvey Levin at TMZ. So you've got half the people saying that is Nolan that's in an altercation and is getting thrown off the boat. And then you got half the people going, oh, no, that's not him. But to me, the clear problem is that critical moment where Katie, if she exists, says he went back with his friends. And the friends say, oh, no, we left. He wanted to stay with her. Right there. That is the first conflict. Both cannot be true. Those cannot mutually exist in truth. They're mutually exclusive. He can't go with them and stay with her on Horn Island.
Now, let me come to this, because Phenomenal Scorpio said when he was interviewed with his mom, he said it was Nolan. Do you all remember him saying that? Because it sure did. I caught that too. Do you all remember that? He said it sounded like Nolan. Do you all remember that? And I'm thinking, did you just say that that was Trayston? Or was he talking about a different argument? Because they said there were multiple altercations. Now, when they said, give me my effing phone, what the F are you doing? It seems to me like that would have been Nolan, because Nolan didn't have his phone, and then they ended up having it, and the mom had to track it. Okay? Now, was Javon saying that that was Nolan talking about the phone, and specifically saying that Trayston was in the argument where we heard somebody saying, get me off this effing boat? Okay, because there were multiple arguments, and I would expect that there were after all those people were on there. Okay, Songwriter Sunny says, didn't someone say it was their own voice? Trayston said it was his voice, but not talking about the phone. He said that he was arguing with someone about his girlfriend, and he was yelling about getting off the boat. Comic Poet Historian says, sounds like Mississippi don't want melanated people out on that island. That is what it sounds like. That is what it sounds like. And quite frankly, I've heard that many people that look like me don't go there for the most part. Okay, JD says both scenarios can be true. He could have left to go find his friends, and they were already gone, hidden no one really knows what happened. Well, that's all true too, JD. I'm sure we've all thought of that. We all know that that could have happened. What makes it seem more likely that his friends did something nefarious are the actions that they took after he was reported missing. That's the problem for them. Okay, certain things that they did, and not to mention now the people that they said they called to tow the boat are supposedly saying that they didn't tow the boat. Okay, so there's a whole lot of questions.
Right there, John Mobley joining me, high-profile lawyer out of Charleston, South Carolina. John, that's where it starts. That lie. I don't know who's lying, but somebody's lying. Right there, Mobley.
Well, I don't know that I would necessarily agree with you on that. I think they can be both partially true depending on perspective. I think one thing we have to kind of keep in mind with this is we have a lot of different people telling things from different perspectives, from their own individuals' perspectives. It's certainly conceivable that he let his friends leave to stay with the female, if he was with the female, assuming that happened. And once he finished his communication or whatever he was doing with the female, told her he was leaving to go back with his friends. And from her standpoint, he said he was going back with his friends, which did not necessarily mean they were the same friends that dropped him off. So I would disagree with you on that.
Hold on, Mobley. Let me see, Mobley. Mobley, you're right. Because as I've told many, many juries, as a trial judge once always said.
Hold on, let me just say this. Queen Shurdahas, Surdedas. I'm not sure how to say that. I'm just gonna call you Queen. Okay. So it says that's why all those black boys that weren't in the funeral yesterday, 100, wasn't there and stayed back telling him to be careful. Yeah, you know what? That's a very good point. Because I did tell you all that one of those young men did tell him. Now, someone said it was Javon, but it was not Javon. It was someone darker than me. Okay, it was totally someone else, and they did tell him to be careful. And that does make sense as to why they would have told him that, beloved, because for one, Black people don't often go to that island from my research. That's what it said. Black people are not usually found out there, okay? And so that being said, they probably know why to not go out there. So that would absolutely make sense as to why they told him to be careful, okay? And I'll holler at you or I'll hit you up when you get back.
In his jury instructions, it is your duty to make all witnesses speak the truth and impugn perjury to no one. So actually what you're saying could be true. If there's another group of friends, if they exist, we haven't heard about him, but you're saying he left with one group and had planned to come back with another group. Okay. I don't know if you're just spinning that out, but that.
See how Nancy said so nonchalantly? I don't know if you're just spitting that out. Yeah, that is what he's spitting out, because where did he get that from? When was that reported? Have we heard this ever? Now, I've been reporting on this case from beginning to end, okay? And I have not ever heard that. Say what now? So he went there, left one group of friends and decided, hey, I'll just ride back with these friends. Who said that? Nobody ever. His friends didn't say that. Katie didn't say that. Katie said that she thought he was going to get on the boat with his friends. His friend says they thought that he was going to catch a ride with Katie because he was still there talking to her. When did anyone say anything about another random phantom group of friends that he was supposed to be catching a ride back with? Where is he getting this from? See, this is what I'm talking about here. People want to give their opinion or what they think when they're in their feelings, and they think they've got it all figured out. And rather than saying allegedly, or this is what I think, this is my opinion, or I can't substantiate it, they will spew their opinions as if they're facts. But let's continue.
That could be possible. Okay, Mobley, listen to this.
You said that you hear on the video Nolan saying,
yes,
my freaking phone, what are you freaking doing?
That's what a witness told us, and that's what we reported out. Then another witness has come forward and said, no, that was his voice. We have other witnesses who said there were other altercations. So as Mr. Hurt said, we're trying to go through it all and so forth. And we'll be even more careful to say, this is what a witness told us in the future.
And so your team hasn't been able to look fully into that and confirm whether it was or was not Nolan that said
No,
that?
we have audio people doing it, but we know certain people said it was him, and then certain people said it was not him.
That is our friend, high-profile lawyer Ben Crump. And the last thing you want is him 3 inches up your tailpipe. Okay. That's from our friends at Fox 10. So this is where it stands. Who left him there? Is there really a Katie? Did he stay with her? Did he leave with his friends? How did he end up there alone, which I find very, very disturbing. And also back to Caitlin Becker joining us, senior national correspondent, New York Post, star of NY Postcast. The Postcast instead of podcast, it's a Postcast. Caitlin, now allegations have reared their ugly head that his phone has been tampered with and items have been deleted. Explain.
They had his phone. And when his mother was looking for his phone when he was missing, there were two different ways to identify it, either a Snapchat location or a Life 360 location. They showed different locations, which is very possible because one updates automatically, the other only updates when you open the app. But when she finally tracked it down, she says there was nothing on it from that day. And this is a teenager. This is a teenager who is constantly on their phones. Yes, when you're on a boat like this and you're out there, you leave it on the boat because you can't really get it wet and you don't want to have it come to the beach with you because you have to actually go in the water to get there. But to have the phone from these friends who didn't willingly turn it over, didn't give it to investigators, didn't give it to his mom, just had it. And for her to open it up and say, I see nothing from that day, no Snapchats, no photos. It looked like things were missing, like there was a gap in the timeline of the life cycle of his phone.
Okay, I've got another problem regarding his phone. Well, number one, to Dr. Janie Lacey, joining us, licensed psychotherapist, CEO of Life Counseling Solutions, author of, well, many books, but How to Heal from a Toxic Relationship, and she's the star of Let's Talk About It with Janie Lacey. Okay, Dr. Janie, who leaves their phone behind? Now look, I just got off a boat with my twins. We went fishing all over the panhandle. We have what you call dry bags. We don't leave our boat. We don't leave our phone anywhere because what if we need it? What if we need it out in the middle of nowhere? And we were on a little strip of land right off the Gulf where, like Horn Island, there's no people. We were there fishing alone, believe it or not. And we had our cell phones. Now, I'm an adult, a teen. What teen leaves their cell phone? None.
Exactly, Nancy. I have a teenager. His phone is with him in his pocket all the time, and he even brings his phone to the bathroom. So we know that teens do not leave their phone. It is their way to communicate. It is attached to them. So when I think about what we're talking about right here is, right, concealment. And I can't speak to what these young people did, but I can tell you, especially young people, when it comes to their phone and they're constantly posting things, it is their norm. So when it comes to deleting, hiding, or even going silent after a tragedy, to me, it's almost always driven by fear of potential blame, fear of consequences, fear of what the truth might mean about themselves. But we know that secrets don't protect. And when teens don't have their phone, or when their phone potentially is taken from their friends, we know that there's a reason behind that. It's usually driven by fear, Nancy.
Okay, I got another issue. Caitlin Becker joining us with New York Post. Caitlin, the Life 360 seems to show something very different than other digital evidence. What do you know about that discrepancy?
It comes down to location, where the Life 360 shows him on dry land versus where the Snapchat showed him in the water, where he was and where the phone was positioned. So that is something that I think forensic investigators have to look into, digital forensic investigators, because it's difficult to determine from looking at it from our perspective, where was the phone actually? Was it out on the water at the last time it was used? Was it on dry land at the last time it was used? And when his mom went to go pick it up, who was the last person to have used it? That's something that sticks out to me because I have to imagine it was password protected. And why would someone else have his password? But it seems as though his mom did, or that they did, so they were able to get into the phone. So the timeline of his disappearance is a big question mark because you're getting two different locations from two different apps.
Hi guys, Nancy Grace here. If you are a homeowner, you've probably thought, should I a month. .net/Nancy. Disclaimer. Go to HTT. Good luck.
So they open up their Snapchat because a lot of the kids do have their locations where they're tracking one another. So one of the boys says, well, it's showing that I can't exactly remember what his location was showing, but my Live 360 location was showing something completely different. It was actually showing that his phone was like he was on LAN. And so we ended up, she received the phone from that parent.
So the Snapchat location looks completely different than the Live 360 location.
Coverage, I mean, as you know, you can have a group of people together, which means they're going to take up more bandwidth, and that's going to cause signal interruption. I think it'd be premature for anyone to try to interpret the data without an accurate digital download being conducted on the phone.
Oh, okay. I'm sure Live 360 and the iPhone industry is going to call you on that. I'm really surprised at this juncture, Mobley, that you'll actually argue with digital forensic evidence. But okay, who should I believe? You or the phone, the Live 360 and the iPhone tracker?
I want to be clear. That's
but
not,
that said, the reason I asked you,
evidence.
I'm hearing something, and it's you. Mobley, if you have teens, okay, you should know about Snapchat. Okay. At the supper table, the children go, did you see so-and-so? I'm like, no, I didn't. And they go, oh, here's a snap. They hold it up and they go, don't touch it, mother, or it will, I don't know, delete. I don't know what it does to it. But a Snapchat, you get to look at it once and it's gone. See, that's a problem forensically and law enforcement wise with Snapchat because they're gone. Unlike a text or you send a photo or an email or you send a video as Alex Murdoch, that nailed his coffin, those stay. Snapchats disappear into the ether. So if the Snapchats aren't there, I can understand that. If there are texts deleted, I don't understand that. Okay, let's hear you explain that digital phenomena.
Now I want to be clear. I want to just, go back to what you talked about earlier. You talked about the digital evidence. There has not been digital forensic evidence extracted from the cell phone yet. What you have are the young man's parents interpreting what they see on the phone and speculating that something must be missing. That's what you have. But both, you need to have a forensic digital data extraction and correct. That can determine if text messages were sent, were they deleted, if photos are deleted, all that needs to be done. I mean, there's no doubt about that whatsoever. But just individuals kind of looking at the phone, trying to interpret these things, that's not digital evidence. That would not be admissible in court. And actually, it would not be reliable.
We also agreed that we will have a mutual inspection of the cell phone with our experts and their experts. Attorney Eric Hertz is helping lead the investigation team with former
Nolan Wells. Todd, I'm curious about a theory that you threw out. It's not your theory, but it is a theory that has been discussed about his body being moved.
Well, as far as the body being moved, several things there. Like I said before, our mission is to bring a body home or bring a person back to their family and their, their loved ones. This is on federal land. So who has jurisdiction, first of all? It seems as though there's federal jurisdiction out there. The fact that they say the body was moved, we've offered our services. We have some of the best dogs available. This Jadarius case in Baton Rouge where the kid was dumped in a landfill, we were the ones instrumental in helping bring that to light, where they're searching for him right now because of our dogs that they found at the gentleman's house that's in jail for murder. We offered our dogs to bring to the boat. There's only one thing that will clean blood off of a boat. I'm not going to mention it because it'll give people ideas. But I doubt if somebody would have done something, they would have used this chemical to remove the blood. So we've offered our services to bring the dogs around the boat of everyone that was potentially involved in this. So the federal land thing is a big deal. So the body being dumped, I would say that let us bring the dog to the boat. Let us bring it. They said the boat was clean that night or the day before. There's only one thing that's going to clean it. If there's blood in that boat, we'll find it. The other thing is, getting back to the phone, if these guys had this phone, they stole his phone, why didn't they throw it away? Why didn't they just throw it in the water? And if there is anything on it, if it was deleted, forensics, they should be able to find it.
Now, let me answer that question that he just asked. I want you all to pay attention. Okay. Lindell says, when a person does Snapchat, do those pictures and messages be seen by other people? And if so, nobody's seen any of his pics, scared to speak of what was seen. Okay, that's a good question, beloved. Thank you for that. And also, thank you for your contribution to the channel. I appreciate you. Peace, love, and blessings. Now, I don't use Snapchat. I've never used Snapchat. But what I know from what I've heard, that and someone correct me if I'm wrong, that when you post things on Snapchat, it stays there for a few seconds and then disappears, a few minutes or whatever, then disappears. And then you can set it so that it stays for like 24 hours. I believe that's what Nolan's mom said. So I'm not sure. Of course, other people see it, but I guess it would be a select group of whom you want to view it. I'm not sure. Because like I said, I don't use it. But here's what I want to say. He just asked the question, if they had his phone, why would they delete anything off of it rather than just discarding it? Well, I'm so glad he asked. There's a myriad of reasons, but here's one of the main reasons, in my opinion. Now, you have to think like a criminal when you're trying to analyze these things, right? So if someone is a killer and they've taken somebody out and that person's phone may have some things in there they want to get rid of, or just in general, they don't want anyone to see that phone, right? Yeah, they could easily throw it away. That's the easy thing. But here's the thing. Here's why they wouldn't throw it away, in my opinion, because let's just say that this person has some things posted pertaining to the killer, or some information that could lead back to the killer, some kind of way get them caught up. And that information is on their Snapchat, their TikTok, their Instagram, or whatever. They would want that phone so they can figure out how to get into that person's social media accounts so they can delete whatever is there. Now, mind you, we do know that the police can find things that are deleted from social media just as easily as they could do the same with your phone. But these killers, well, I'm not going to say they're killers, so let's just say, but a killer may not know that. A killer may not be thinking of that. They may think, I can just delete all this stuff and that's going to be the end of it. Or they may also be thinking that if there's something nefarious on the social media that they want to delete, maybe the police won't even look that way, in that direction. It could be a myriad of reasons why they want to do it. And also, that's, sometimes people just in a haste to rush when they're committing a crime. People don't always think logically. I mean, this guy and other people have said that same thing, asked that same question. They act as though killers just have a list of everything, every killer that is, because some really do, like Ted Bundy, these methodical, organized killers, right? They usually will have a checklist of things they need to do and not do to remind themselves so they don't leave any stone unturned. Okay, so they clean up all of the evidence and breadcrumbs that are leading to them. Okay, but sometimes people just absolutely forget certain things. Now, they may also want to remove incriminating conversations. The person could have exchanged text messages, social media messages, or anything. Okay, phone calls to the victim, all of that, they would want to delete it. Like I said, maybe they wouldn't have the wherewithal to be thinking that the police could easily retrieve these things. Maybe they did so to hide their motive, to conceal other people that could have been involved, to delay suspicion, to protect themselves while leaving the phone behind. Okay, discarding the phone entirely could arouse suspicion. Think about it. Okay, it could attract attention or be difficult if the person fears being seen. Okay, they may believe deleting messages is enough, but even though it never is, because like I said, the police can retrieve these things. So there are a myriad of reasons as to why they would not just simply discard the phone.
My thing is, if you came with these guys and they didn't bring you home, that is not uncommon. So I think there's where the focus needs to be. Let's get this notion that there was a body dumped. Let's bring the dogs to that boat, and we'd be willing to offer our services to go check that out. And B, these guys in the boat that he came with, it's okay that they left him on the island or they didn't bring him in. But yeah, as far as the body being dumped, our services are offered, and they've been offered to go bring the dogs around that boat.
Okay, well, he just proved a good point. Listen to that. He said as far as the body being dumped, they've already offered their services to bring the dogs around the boat. You see, cadaver dogs can tell if whether or not there was a dead body, a corpse on that boat. So he said they've offered their services. Well, why haven't their services been accepted? Does somebody think, like we may be thinking, that the body was absolutely on that boat and taken out there and placed? I have several questions, because if he's offered his services for that, why haven't they taken him up on his offer? Okay, please pay attention. Now he's talking as if he's trying to paint a narrative to protect those young men, but what he just said, okay, that goes along with as to why, or to the plausibility factor of that body being placed out there. Okay, you offered to have the cadaver dogs come out there to the boats, and nobody from the law enforcement or from Ocean Springs Sheriff's Office has taken you up on that. Now, I find that definitely suspicious. Okay, definitely suspicious, because they were going to do it voluntarily without a charge, right? So why wouldn't you take that, even if you weren't sure or maybe thought, man, there's nothing to see here, but you could still do that as a precaution or just for an added measure to make sure that you're leaving no stone unturned. Okay, very suspicious in my opinion. Let's continue.
They don't believe how toxic this is. If you're still just rinsing your
Guys, Nancy Grace here. Please join us on Crime Stories and stream it first on Fox 1. When breaking crime news develops, we investigate it and bring it to you. Bombshell updates, answers to unanswered questions from cases making the headlines and cases you may never have heard of until Crime Stories. We go inside investigations with exclusive interviews, crime victims, families seeking justice, investigators, experts, and sources from within the case itself. Stay on top of the nation's biggest trials with us, including gavel-to-gavel coverage with real-time analysis. Crime Stories with Nancy Grace. Stream it first on Fox 1.
Also, someone in the chat was asking, did they have the code? Did his phone have a password or whatever? I don't know, have no way of knowing that until they come out with the phone data that Ben Crump, as well as the Ocean Springs Sheriff's Office, is supposed to be looking into. So I don't know anything about if it had a passcode, but usually teenagers would have a passcode on their phone. Most people, in fact, do, in my opinion. But also, you said, how did the mother get it? That's been talked about 1,000 times, beloved. You must be late to the party. The mother got it because she had tracked it, okay? She tracked his phone, and then she sent her friend Toshima, who is Javon Williams' mom, her best friend, to go and get the phone. I hope everyone's caught up after that. Now let's continue.
I hope to see you there, and thank you, friend.
Nolan voluntarily said he's going to stay behind, and his parents and friends outright reject that. They said that is not of Nolan's character or disposition, and had he done so, would he have ever not wanted his cell phone? The young lady he was talking to, who said he told her that he was going to get back into the boat with the boys, and then the boys said that Nolan said he was going to stay and talk with her. Obviously, the statements conflict with one another.
They absolutely do conflict. And hold on, let me just say this too. As it pertains to the phone being discarded, listen, a phone that is discarded to simply tossed away could also be recovered. Let's not forget that the guy, the Roper guy who's involved in Daniel Irving's drowning, that he's in jail right now, he and his other accomplice, because they were accused of tampering with evidence because they took his phone. And in that case, they did discard the phone, but it was obviously found. And so now they've been charged with tampering with evidence because they deleted things from the phone before discarding it. But here's the thing. So a discarded phone, as I said, can always be recovered, but throwing it away introduces different risk, okay? Because if the phone is found, it still may have all of its data, location history, fingerprints, DNA, and even other evidence. And a person may mistakenly think that deleting messages, like I said, is a safer option than just simply disposing of the device. But the bottom line is the police can still retrieve it.
We always taught him to, if you go with a group, you stay with a group. Even when he was in college, he would say, Dad, well, we're going to ride down to a party or something in another city. Now, so I was out telling him, look, if you go with 5, you come back with 5. Do not separate from your group.
Okay, you got Crump.
And quite frankly, most Black parents tell their children that. Okay, that's the rule in most Black families' households.
And he's saying it is not Nolan's character to have stayed behind to start with, or much less without his phone. He identifies the conflict that we have identified tonight between the two stories. The dad insists he would never have parted with all of his friends. And last but not least, we're hearing not only did Snapchats disappear, but that Nolan was a videographer, a photographer. He always took pictures of the fun times he was having, moments with his friends, games, the whole shebang. But they're all gone. There are not any. I also find that disturbing, Caitlin.
It's a little odd that there was nothing on the phone seemingly from that day. That does strike me as odd. I do want to push back a little or set the stage a little bit for what this day was like. There were multiple boats going out at the same time to this island. They were filling up with a few teens. They left. The next group kind of got in. This is per the reporting and per what some of the witnesses said. There was maybe a couple hundred people on that island that day. That a lot of them were young. It was supposed to be some big kind of summer extravaganza before everybody, went back to school. So I don't think it's accurate to say he wouldn't go back with his friends, or he didn't go back with his friends, or he didn't intend to go back with his friends, because I think there were more than just those 4 friends on one boat that it sounded like the intention was for him to go with another group. Where I get stuck is the point that Ben Crump made. Why would he let his phone go back with his friends? Sure, you want to stay and go back with another group. I get that. You heard, the person who was part of the search saying that's not uncommon. It does sound uncommon for anyone, a teenager, an adult, anyone to say, okay, go ahead and take my phone back.
Now, I want you all to pay attention. You heard what that lady said, right? She said that he claims that it's not uncommon. She said, but it does sound uncommon for a teenager, for anyone to say, go ahead, take my phone, and I'm just going to stay back. Exactly. He's full of crap. Like I told you all, he's trying to act as though there's nothing unusual about any of this, but it's absolutely unusual. Okay, he sounds ridiculous. Painting a narrative.
Back with you. I'll stay without a means of communication for however long. That's what gets me. Why would anybody let their phone go on another boat without them, with no plan to get it back?
Exactly. Now, regarding Snapchat, they delete immediately once they're opened. They can go about 30 days unopened, but you can manually set Snapchat to a 24-hour delete. And I'm wondering if that's what his mother is talking about. And on another front, listen.
We had his body flown from Mississippi to Washington, D.C. because his family wanted to make sure that they had a doctor who had no ties to Mississippi law enforcement to do an independent examination of their son's body. And we are hopeful to get that results in the very near future.
There is famed attorney Ben Crump speaking, the parents standing behind him, Nolan's parents, from our friends at Fox 10. Dr. Weigh in.
Nancy, what I would want to stress is what we see with Christine, who is living through what we call ambiguity loss, right? And it's one of the most excruciating forms of grief there is. When a mother buries her child without her nervous system can't even begin to close the wound, because them searching her last memories, a hug and a kiss over a salmon dinner, and then silence. So grief needs a story to hold on to. And until the family has truth, the grief has nowhere to land. And that's why transparency in this investigation isn't just a legal issue. In my mind, it's a mental health intervention for this. Answers are how heals.
Joining us now, renowned guest, Dr. Kendall Crowns, Chief Medical Examiner, Tarrant County. He is the star of a hit podcast, Mayhem in the Morgue. He is the esteemed lecturer at the Burnett School of Medicine at TCU and has performed well over 10,000 autopsies. Dr. Kendall Crowns, thank you for being with us. Okay, I don't have a ruling from the medical examiner. It should be apparent if drowning was the COD, cause of death. That should be very apparent by simply autopsying the lungs. Also, you'd know immediately if there were signs of trauma. I've seen the photos of his body on the beach, but as Todd Terrell from United Cajun Navy stated, the body was face down, so I couldn't see the face, the neck, the arms, the hands for defensive wounds. I couldn't see if there were bruises to the torso. I couldn't see if the skull was fractured. None of that. I couldn't see if teeth were missing. But it seems to me if those exhibited, we would know there had been blunt force trauma, stabbing, shooting, manual or ligature asphyxiation. We would know that. But yet, we know nothing. So, to me, that would rule out drowning or trauma. Are they waiting on toxicology? Is that what they're waiting on? And why would the body have been sent for an independent autopsy? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But what's going on, Dr. Kendall Crowns?
Okay, to start with, he was in the water for several days. I'm sure the water in that area is warm, so his body is going to be decomposing. He'll have skin slippage. He's going to have bloating from the decompositional gases and then purge fluid coming out of his mouth and other orifices. So then you also probably have post-mortem animal scavenging or marine aquatic life scavenging that can create marks on the body as well. So at autopsy, your question, wouldn't you be able to see the evidence of injury? Yes, you should still be able to see injuries, bruises, stab wounds, gunshot wounds, all that, even in decomposition, can still be seen, can still be determined. It doesn't sound like he's been consumed by aquatic life to the point that he's skeletonized in the front of his body. So my assumption is you would still be able to see injuries. Now, they have not given a definitive cause and manner of death yet, because to me, that means there's no obvious signs of injuries or no obvious cause of death. Because drowning, yes, the lungs can swell and be heavy with fluid, but this can also happen with drug overdoses. So differentiating a drowning from a drug overdose is difficult.
No.
So you
No. N-O. Yes.
Well, I don't know how
it
many
would exhibit,
autopsies of
manifest
drownings
in
you've
the
done,
same.
but I've done a lot. So
Absolutely
continue
zero.
on,
But I
please.
don't need to have my MD or be the lecturer at Burnett School of Medicine to know that if the lungs are full, and it could be drowning or fluid caused
Drug
by an
overdose.
overdose. Can't you get the fluid and test it?
So testing of the fluid from the lungs there's nothing to test for. What you're going to look for is the pulmonary edema or fluid in the lungs. You're going to try and differentiate a drug overdose from drowning with a toxicologic study, which is what they're doing, and that can take up to 6 to 8 weeks. Drowning is a diagnosis of exclusion because it can mimic so many other things, including a drug overdose. You want to rule those things out before you determine cause and manner of death. And that's probably what they're doing. They're making sure he didn't overdose before they make the decision that he drowned. Now, the second autopsy being done, that's just the family obviously has no confidence in the local medical examiner / coroner system, and they've sent it to an independent person to do a second autopsy. Not uncommon, especially in cases that are more high profile or there's some sort of dispute, and they send it to an independent person to do a second autopsy to see what they can find. And from my knowledge, the information on that still isn't out yet. So they're also probably trying to find out what the toxicologic studies are going to show before they make a decision. So right now, we're kind of pending on what drugs he has on board before they make a cause and manner of death statement.
Dr. Kendall Crowns, I understand. And I also understand your explanation regarding the potential drowning fluid in the lungs as opposed to or compared to the fluid in the lungs if there had been an overdose. If he's found right there, face down, it looked to me like in the surf, not out in the water floating, but up on the beach. So even if that was the least of it, the water still would have gone into his nose and mouth. If he were alive, he could have inhaled it or ingested it, even if a drug overdose was the true COD, which would require, I guess, what, Dr. Crowns, a dual finding of drowning and OD. And I'll just state for the record, let it be noted in the record that I have never performed an autopsy, but I'm glad you pointed that out. So what about the fluid in the lungs if there had been an OD? And by the way, there is no suggestion that drugs were used that day. None whatsoever. But that said, you're saying that there would be no difference in the fluid found in his lungs.
So with a drowning, you're going into heart failure at some point from the anoxia created or the lack of oxygen to the brain created by the drowning, because there's no air and water. And that causes your body to shut down, which causes fluid to back up and causes pulmonary edema or swelling of the lungs. The same process happens in a drug overdose. But when you're drowning and you're inhaling that water, you get some water in your lungs as well, but you're also swallowing and gulping it, throwing back up, and then swallowing and gulping it again. So you'll have water in your stomach that you can look for in a drowning, not always. And sometimes you'll get water in an area in your sinus cavity called the sphenoid sinus as well. But the pulmonary edema created by drowning looks exactly like the pulmonary edema created by a drug overdose. So you can't really differentiate the two of those. And that's why the drug testing is so important. And yes, you are correct. If drugs come back on board, like let's just say fentanyl, it would be part 1 drowning, part 2 fentanyl toxicity, and then manner would be accident. So it's going to be a drowning no matter what. But is there going to be a toxicology component added on? And that's probably what they're working on as we speak.
Okay, so now pay attention to what he said, because that's basically some of the same things I've told you, is that how drowning is the cause, but not the manner of death, okay? But also, Cream Cherry says that his arrogance is astonishing. I couldn't. Here's the thing. He's being very arrogant, in my opinion, because he knows that he knows more about what he's talking about than Nancy Grace does. She's trying to trip him up, but he's a pathologist. He's done this for years. He went to school for this, so she cannot trip him up because this man knows what he's talking about. I mean, even though we may not like what he's saying, he does know what he's talking about, because here's the thing. When she's talking about the liquid being found in the lungs or whatever, well, first of all, let me say this. He does, in my opinion, appear to be trying to paint a bit of a narrative, because it seems as though he's assuming that he's already has a preconceived notion or, believes that possibly there was illegal substances used that day. Okay? Because he's talking about this overdose. He's talking about an overdose. So that's the first thing he's trying to do. He's trying to paint a narrative that, because they were out there drinking, and he's likely heard, now mind you, he's likely heard the same thing that we've heard about these young guys who were with Nolan, that they in fact are known for doing illegal substances. But see, that's them. Nolan was not. Okay, Nolan was not. And if there were any illegal substances found in Nolan's body when the toxicology report comes in, I'm just not going to believe that Nolan took them voluntarily. Maybe someone could have injected him is the first thing I'm going to think. And let's not forget that Dr. Benjamin Hudson, Warren's father, is also a toxicologist who studies these different types of illegal addictions. Okay, he studies addictions, he works with that or whatever. Okay, so I'll just keep that in mind because that's not going to prove anything to me. But here's the thing, and I really feel like he's very adamant about this whole narrative. Okay, but here's the thing. Pathologists rarely test the liquid itself that's found inside of a drowning victim's lungs. Because remember, she asked him specifically, could he test the fluids or the in the lungs? So they don't really do that. What they do is instead they focus on examining the physical state of the lungs, such as performing tissue biopsies, which is called a histology. And I think I told you all this like a week ago. And then they check the internal organs for microscopic evidence of water inhalation. And like he said, sometimes there's water in the stomach because you spit water up, you're breathing in water and then you're vomiting it back up and all of that. So that's absolutely plausible. Now, because drowning leaves no single undeniable footprint, it remains a diagnosis of exclusion. You see, pathologists can carefully rule out foul play or natural disease and poisoning before finalizing the cause of death. Okay? That's what they can do. And then also you have to differentiate. It's important to differentiate between fresh water and salt water. Okay, and whether or not, or this is how you determine, in drownings, this is how forensic scientists basically determine if the victim was already dead before entering the water. Okay, you want to make sure you cover all your bases so you can figure these things out. But the last thing I want to say is this: to his point, when he said that a rug overdose can look like a drowning, that is very true. In fact, they can look almost identical to a drowning. Okay, they absolutely can. Specifically during an initial physical and internal examination. And the primary reason for this is because both involve acute or basically is because both acute opioid or sedative overdoses specifically and drowning result in something known as profound hypoxia, which is basically a severe lack of oxygen to the tissues. Okay, and then terminal respiratory failure will be caused. So that shared mechanism creates matching physical damage inside the body. So he's very right about that. Pathologists encounter striking similarities between the two when they're conducting autopsies. Okay, very often. So that's why I said this is why he's sitting there looking so sure of himself, because in fact, he is sure of himself. Okay, he knows exactly what he's talking about. Nancy, sadly for her, can't trip him up. Okay, let's do this.
You're on cross-examination. Who is our next sponsor? Well, here is a probative clue. Meow. Cinnamon. In the last hours, this young man, with his life before him, has been laid to rest. His parents attending his funeral instead of getting ready for his next big school event, getting ready for fall school. We wait as justice unfolds. If you know or think you know anything regarding Nolan's death, please dial 228-769-3063. We remember American hero, Deputy Sheriff Adam Heitman, Creek County Sheriff's, Oklahoma, passed away in the line of duty after 6 years, leaving behind a grieving wife, Samantha, and 2 little girls, Olivia and Chloe. American hero, Deputy Sheriff Adam Heitman. Thank you to our guests, but especially.
All right, may he rest in peace. Condolences to the family. Peace, condolences and prayers to the family. Now, with that all being said, I want to know what Judge Mathis had to say about all of this. I have not seen this video. It just popped up, and I want to hear what he has to say. Okay, likes up, everyone, please like and share. Now, with that all being said, Nancy Grace didn't mention anything about the tow company denying having towed the boat. She didn't mention anything about that. I was wondering if she would. Okay, so let's go to this clip. I'm going to share it on my screen, but also I'm going to use an overlay. Here we go.
Phone right in the boat. Say an hour or so, hour or two. If you're a real friend, you'll drive back on that recreational hour or two on the boat, having fun, to give your man his phone. Because if he's out there by himself, no question about it, 90% white in the state of Mississippi that has a history of demonizing and black men and killing them in the civil rights era. Most of the civil rights killings occurred in Mississippi, including Medgar Evers, including our dear young brother from Mississippi who was killed, and several others. And so we know that Mississippi has a history of demonizing and marginalizing black men. And so the question became, what is the investigation going to be? Well, the police immediately accepted the version of the three young men that returned. Now, here you are, you're supposed to be the police. And I just deduced it. And I deduced it not just now, but I had deduced it immediately after seeing it in the media. And I'm not an investigator, I'm a lawyer and a judge, but an investigator, that is a police investigator / detective, has investigative techniques that would have immediately thrown into question what occurred. And common sense throws into question what occurred. And that's where we're at now. And there's some actions being taken by Ben Crump. I've spoken with him and he's on top of it. And the family has the questions raised. Again, why would he leave his cell phone? Because it had to be voluntary. And then voluntarily stay on an island by himself without telling them why. A lot of questions there, a lot of holes in it, and that's what that grand jury is going to look into.
Okay, exactly. That's the good news. Please pay attention. Now, with that all being said, I have a few videos that I want you all to see, and let's get into it.
All you white folks is shaking in your boots now. Nancy Grace is on the goddamn case, and everybody know when she get involved, that motherfucker turns over every stone, and she is not afraid to challenge you white folk. She will do it. So it's getting ready to get real interesting. She already done challenged one man, and she getting ready to do her own personal investigation to figure out what the fuck going on. You better be careful. New reports have...
Hold on, beloved. Okay. Azacatano says, what did I say about a boathouse in the previous broadcast, and where was the boathouse and where was it? Or who had a boathouse and where was it? I didn't say anything about a boathouse, beloved. What I said was, when they were talking about the boat being towed, I noticed that they said it was towed to a private residence. Okay, towed over land to a private residence. And I said they didn't notice. I noticed they didn't mention anything about it being at the judge's house, because witnesses allegedly told the police that the boat, or they spotted Warren and someone cleaning that boat at about 3 a.m. in the morning at the judge's house. That's what they didn't bother to mention. Okay, and I said I wondered if that was even true, but I believe that it is, and they just conveniently left that out. Because first of all, like Nancy Grace even said, we didn't hear all of that information from the report. Okay, we didn't hear all of the information. They told us what they wanted us to know. They didn't tell us everything, because at the end of the day, how did Nancy Grace go out there and she saw the body? She confirmed that it was found upside down and all of that. Some of these details they just didn't give us. And I think the fact that the body, or I'm sorry, not the body, the fact that the boat was allegedly at Judge Ashley Cole's house is one of the details they chose to leave out. Okay, thank you for your insight into the topic and your contribution, beloved. I appreciate you. Peace, love, and blessings.
Came out about the towing company with the boat. See, Tow is saying, we ain't had shit to do with that. Yeah, they called us. They told us they didn't need us no more. Keep our goddamn name out that business. We ain't had nothing to do with that. You talk to them about it. Quit fucking up our company. So shit getting ready to get interesting, y'all. Keep looking.
Mm-hmm.
TikTok, make it make sense. Let's touch on it. Another adult conversation.
We're me say this, beloved. You said Cartier Dream says, I heard someone said it was a rental boat, which I don't believe. It's a private boat and someone they knew. Here's the thing. That was not a rental boat. It's already been established through reports, beloved. They're lying, in my opinion, because it has already been said that that was Wyatt's boat. Okay, that's already been reported that it was Wyatt's boat. Now, unless that was incorrect information, they've already said who owned that boat. Okay, so yeah, someone could be trying to paint a narrative.
Listen, Brandon Tatum made a comment. He said, I am not black, I'm American. Okay, that's fine. Then he also said that he's a conservative. But if you're a conservative and you're an American, how can you follow Donald Trump? Because Donald Trump made a comment at Charlie Kirk's funeral that...
Okay, let me just skirt past him. I don't know how I ended up putting him in here. Clearly, I didn't mean to. He's talking about Trump and Charlie Kirk. Hold on.
Service Sam here with a Nolan Xavier Wells update. I know, skin cancer, Secret Service Cyclops. I apologize about the bandage. Nancy Grace today on her show talked to Todd Terrell, who's part of the United Cajun Navy, who was the people who found Nolan Wells. He says it's not unusual for bodies to wash up on shore in the spot where the boats took off from. He said it's not unusual for people to just catch a ride home with somebody else, like Nolan's friends left. He said, I'm going on another boat, or even if he missed that boat, it's not uncommon for a stranger to like say, hey, you can have a ride back, but he didn't get a ride back. But what is unusual, and I'm saying this, is that no teenager is going to leave their cell phone behind, period. End of conversation. Yes, you might leave it when you get into the water, but you're not going to leave it when your friends are saying they're leaving you, right? Nancy Grace now pushes back and says, what do you mean that's not unusual? Because he's talking about the rip currents that are there on the island. He says the whole Gulf Coast is a dangerous area, and he says they can't put up signs saying rip current. He said it should be known that it's a very dangerous area. He said they call it the washing machine, which is where the water just rolls around and around. Now, he says something kind of interesting here. He says Nolan was found in the spot where the incident occurred. And Nancy pushes back saying, what incident are you talking about? And he's like, well, it appears to be an accidental drowning. He says there's rumors that he was brought 10 miles back to land and then he was dumped back off on Horn Island.
Y'all gonna get mad, but I really don't give a damn. Jason Lee said he's seen more people participate in the Quiet on the Creek challenge than talk about Nolan Wells. And this is what I gotta ask. Who the are you talking to? What people? Because you damn sure can't be talking about the everyday black folks I know and see on my timeline. We've been saying this boy's name. I've been seeing justice for Nolan all over my algorithm. I've been seeing people reposting him, praying for him, asking questions, demanding answers. So if that's not who you talking about, put a name on it, put an address on it. Maybe you talking about the people in your circle. Because let's be real, you got access to celebrities that most of us don't. You know entertainers, you know influencers, you know people with millions of followers. So if you feel like more celebrities should have spoken up, why didn't you call them? If Rihanna your friend, why you ain't asked Rihanna? If you know A$AP Rocky, why you ain't asked him? If you know Santana, since we using the Quiet on the Creek reference, why you ain't asked Santana? Go talk to the people you actually got access to. Don't get online acting like the everyday people ain't been doing nothing. We've been posting, we've been sharing, we've been praying. We've been keeping this boy's name alive. Had regular people not kept talking about Nolan, who knows how much attention this case would have gotten. So don't come over here trying to throw all of us under the bus. If you're talking about celebrities, then say celebrities. If you're talking about influencers, then say influencers. But don't lump everybody together when a whole lot of regular folks have been doing exactly what they can with the platform they got. Be specific, because from where I'm standing, the people have been showing up. The question is whether the people with the biggest microphones have.
Okay, and she said what she said. All right, now, Phenomenal Scorpio says, did you hear that Javon and Nolan's phones was on the boat, but Javon went and got his phone? Yes, we covered that days ago, beloved. Thank you.
Aw, Nolan Wells' friends are grieving and they're scared of what social media says every single day, and they just can't grieve properly. Oh, you poor little things. My heart goes out to you bitch-ass cowards. A man is dead. His body was floating in the ocean, upside down, face down, letting the water and in nature do what it does, and letting his dad find him. Not you bitch-ass cowards. You didn't go out there to search for your friend. His dad did, and some stranger because you were doing what? Grieving in the comfort of your own motherfucking home. While you sitting there on your little group friend chats behind a keyboard, being a keyboard warrior coward, hyping each other up. Stop that crap. Stop that crap, you bitch-ass cowards. You're not grieving. Grieving over what? Inconsistencies? Grieving over what? The fact that y'all been telling different stories, that it's inconsistent. What are you grieving over? A young man's life ended and you're thinking about yourself, how you're so scared of social media. You should be scared because your asses should be in jail for this bullshit. How does a boy disappear and nobody knows? Friends you called.
Okay, so with that all being said, let me just say 901 baby boy, please be careful of the comments that you put in my chat, beloved. I'm going to delete that. We don't use the C word around here, and we don't use racially charged language ever, okay, for any race or ethnic group. Please just be mindful of that, okay? Now, FBA Justice says, I'm no detective, but I can see how intentionally negligent law enforcement was in this case. This is a cover-up, in my opinion. Absolutely, I agree, beloved. I absolutely believe this is a whole nefarious cover-up, okay, in your opinion and mine. All right, because here's the thing. Pay attention to how they keep saying, oh, it just appears to be an accidental drowning. How are you saying that and coming to that conclusion? How do you arrive at that decision when the autopsy report has not even been released? But it will be released, okay, and I will be up on here bright and early in the morning to report on it. Okay, so please pay attention. Now, with that all being said, it looks like some people are painting a bunch of narratives because they're trying to basically, give these young men a way out. Okay, trying to make sure they don't get any consequences for what they may or may not have done. We don't know for a fact, but it all looks suspicious again. Okay, let me just say. All right, it just all looks suspicious. Okay, please pay attention. Now, with that being said, we're about to be out of here in a second or two. But before we do, I want you all to hear this, because this guy called himself going in on Black folk and our culture. But funny thing is, he actually is involved in our culture. Okay, he's one of those people who tries to dress like us, talk like us, walk like us, act like us, and then talks trash about us, only because he's jealous. Okay, please pay attention.
I would like somebody to stitch my video and show me Black culture that does not revolve around rap music, does not revolve around violence, and does not revolve around you people committing crimes against your own people and, more importantly, my people.
So what do people in sharks have in common? The great ones are white. Let's see a black boy do this.
Oh, we're going to have some fun with this one. You know, the modern tribal tattoo craze, it swept America in the 80s and 90s and was made popular by a guy named Leo Zaletta. He was a Filipino-American tattoo artist that was raised in Hawaii, who's widely regarded as the father of modern tribal tattooing. He drew inspiration from the indigenous tattoo traditions of the Pacific Samoa, Micronesia, Borneo, Fiji, so on and so forth. Oh, and did you know that in the 80s, black artists from New York transformed everyday sportswear into cultural identity? Groups like Run DMC didn't ask fashion designers what was cool. They became fashion. Adidas tracksuits and Kangos and gold chains and Figaro chains and athletic shoes and baseball caps. The streets became a runway, and the world copied them. And by the 90s, wearing your cap backwards wasn't about baseball anymore. Well, it was hip-hop culture, swagger, and identity. Now, what started in the black communities became a global fashion. But on another topic, crisp lineups and fades, that shit didn't come from nowhere. Those techniques were refined in black barbershops, institutions that were never just places to get a haircut. They were businesses built during segregation, gathering places for neighborhoods, centers of political conversation, mentorship, entrepreneurship, and artistry. Black barbers turned hair into sculpture. They made precision fades and lineups as an art form decades before the rest of America caught on. So I say all that, Seth, to say, look, dude, your tattoo was inspired by indigenous Pacific cultures through Leo Zaletta, who started it back in the 80s. Your backwards hat was popularized as fashion through black hip hop, and they did that in the 80s. Or haircut built on generations of black barber culture. The funniest part isn't that you asked us to prove black culture exists. It's that you accidentally volunteered yourself, Seth, as Exhibit A. And every time you get that lineup touched up, and every time you throw that hat on backwards, and every time you clasp that chain around your neck, you're paying tribute to cultures that you don't even realize you're borrowing from. History doesn't care whether you acknowledge it. It happened anyway, Seth. After borrowing aesthetics from indigenous cultures in Black America, all 145 pounds of your ass has the audacity to ask us to show you Black culture. Bitch, you're standing in it.
I'm gonna be the first nigga to say it right now. I think all these other races are a fucking joke to me. Like the way how y'all always in Black people business, always worried about what's going on in the Black community, talking about, oh yeah, Black on Black crime, Blacks always killing each other. Should I walk y'all down the street of y'all cultures and tell y'all about your fucking people? Like all the racial Latinos love saying that shit. Nigga, did you forget about Mexico and the cartels? How it be people hanging from bridges and shit? How little 13-year-old boys is getting dragged out their mother house, a pistol put in their hands, and they getting told, kill this person right here that you never met before, or I'm going to kill your entire family. Let's get into that. Let's talk about the goddamn Japanese Yakuza out there cutting niggas' fingers and shit off. Them and the goddamn Chinese triads out there disappearing niggas. What's up with that? Let's get into that.
Okay, so he said what he said. You all heard him. All right. Now, with that being said, let's go to Secret Service Sam, because he also says that the tow company says they didn't tow that boat. Okay, let's get into it. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. Here we go.
Here with a Nolan Xavier Wells update. Now, as reported by lots of outlets, but Nicole Everything, make sure you're following. Also, Kimbra, make sure you're following her. Sea Tow made a statement. Before assistance was rendered, the vessel owner advised that Sea Tow was no longer needed because help had already been obtained. Sea Tow's involvement concluded at that point. Now, some people are saying, was there another tow company? But I would say they would have come forward or been questioned already. And we need GPS for the other boats that help them, right? We're seeing video that TMZ just released, which we've all been seeing, that second video that could be Nolan on the boat. The boat name looked like it was either Little Daddy, Mac Daddy, Big Daddy, Real Daddy. We're not sure. It also allegedly looks like that could be Katie's dad on the boat, Katie McCormick's dad. We don't know about that either. There's a story of a cousin not being around, but this could lead, if he was on Katie's dad's boat, to, Mississippi and, hooking up with his daughter, and maybe something went awry. Allegedly, we're not sure of this. Now, here's something I find also very interesting. I had a man who was a member of the fire department Marine rescue team, and he said that when he had to go retrieve a body in the water, that they had to get it into a body bag before lifting him on the boat out of concern that the skin would not stay intact. He said this particular person had been in the water for 24 hours. Now, we know Nolan allegedly was in the water for around 48 plus hours, and they said there was no damage or bloating to the body. This man says if Nolan's body did not show signs of being in the water very long, the math is not mathing. And I couldn't agree more. What do you guys think about this? I'll be on Nancy Grace actually tomorrow morning talking about this case. Please make sure you check me out. We're all staying on top of this. I want to give a shout out to all the amazing independent journalists who single-handedly are keeping this case in the news. And I send my thoughts and prayers and light and love out to the Wells family at this time. Secret Service Sam.
All right, so you heard it there. Now, here's the thing. Before we conclude, let me just say that Ben Crump is going to be releasing that autopsy tomorrow. Okay? He's going to be releasing it tomorrow. Here's the official letter. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. Thank you in advance. Okay, so yeah, it's going to be released on tomorrow. So let me just read this to you. Hold on. Hold on here. Okay. Now, here's what they say. Ben Crump to announce preliminary findings for independent autopsy in death of Nolan Wells. The NAACP adopts resolution calling for in-depth, transparent investigation. Okay, so nationally renowned civil rights and personal injury attorney Ben Crump will join the family of Nolan Xavier Wells at a news conference Wednesday at the 117th NAACP National Convention. Crump will announce the preliminary findings of an independent autopsy conducted on behalf of the family. Okay, then they go on to talk about Nolan and what happened to him and all of that, and about the NAACP Board of Directors adopting the resolution and all of that. So that will be tomorrow at 8 a.m. Central Standard Time. Okay, so please pay attention because I will be live with that breaking news and information because we have been waiting for it. Okay, so with that all being said, I'm going to conclude this broadcast. I want to thank you all for tuning in. Please like, share, subscribe, and all of that. And I will see you all on the next broadcast in the morning, okay, where we'll find out exactly what that independent autopsy says. All right, and we're still waiting to see what Ocean Springs is going to have on theirs. Okay, so until then, each one teach one. That's how we grow and thrive. Do something productive, constructive, but never destructive. And always remember, beloveds, to keep the Most High first in your lives. And until next time, I will talk to you all again soon. Peace.
4th of July. Fireworks in the sky. But the truth's still buried underground. Royal Oak. Yeah. They told me, wave the flag while the chains still clank. Told me praise the names on the blood-soaked banks. Told me freedom was born in the room full of men who wrote liberty down while they own human skins. So fuck your founding fathers and the myths they made. I don't pledge to the lie, I don't kneel to the page. You can light up the sky, I remember the smoke from the fields, from the ships, from the necks in the rope. You call it independence, I call it selective. You call it patriotic, I call it protective. Of the story so fragile it cracks when questioned. Truth knocks once and they call it aggression. Yeah. Red for the blood they spill, white for the lies they told, blue for the bruises left on the bodies they sold. Don't ask me to celebrate what never included mine. I came with the receipts, I came to redraw the line. Fuck your founding fathers, I don't owe them praise. They built a nation on our backs, then told us smile through the pain. Fuck your founding fathers, let the fireworks cry. This ain't freedom for the people. If the truth still gotta hide, yeah, no justice, no peace, no lie gets crowned. We don't worship old ghosts when the roots scream loud. Fuck your founding fathers. On the 4th of July, I'm lighting up the truth while they light up the sky. They say, look how far we came. I say, look what it cost. Every courthouse got a shadow, every victory got lost. They gave statues to the takers, made heroes out of thieves. Put their faces on the money while the hungry couldn't breathe. Don't lecture me on freedom from a stolen land stage. Don't quote old documents with blood on the page. Don't tell me be grateful for a seat at the table when my people built the room and got treated unstable. You can't buy me through the truth, you can dress it in stars, but the anthem still echoes like chains behind bars. I don't hate the people, I hate the disguise. I hate when the guilty get praised as the wise. Red for the blood they spill, white for the lies they told, blue for the bruises left on the bodies they sold. Don't ask me to celebrate what never included mine. I came with the receipts, I came to redraw the line. Fuck your founding fathers, I don't owe them praise. They built a nation on our backs, then told us smile through the pain. Fuck your founding fathers, let the fireworks cry. This ain't freedom for the people. If the truth still gotta hide, no justice, no peace, no lie gets crowned. We don't worship old ghosts when the roots scream loud. Fuck your founding fathers. On the 4th of July, I'm lighting up the truth while they light up the sky. Don't call it hate when the wound speaks back. Don't call it division when our name was fact. Don't call it progress while the system still bites. Don't call it freedom if we still gotta fight. I'm not here for comfort, I'm not here to pretend. than chains, better than flags, used to cover up pain.